Hi guys and welcome to Edit Building, and this class or in the next series of videos we'll be looking at HTML. So for this class I've decided to use free resources, and the free resource in particular is going to be W3 Schools. So this series covers HTML. That's what we'll be covering for this series, and then after this maybe we can move on to CSS and then JavaScript. So to get started with first, I'm going to try to make this class as brief and short as possible. I'm not going to cover some theoretical concept of web development. I'm only going to be covering practical aspects. But to get started with HTML, which I might as well just come here and show you. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. I thought I had something like that here, but others I don't have it. So yes, HTML meaning. mm, That's so. As you can see here, it stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it is the code that is used to structure a web page and its content. There are three main languages when it comes to web development. They are HTML, which is the structure of the web page, CSS, which is the styling of the web page, and JavaScript, which is the behavior of the web page. But like I said, I won't be going too much into theoretical aspect. I'll be mostly covering practical aspects. So let's get our hands on it. I'll be working with Visual Studio Code. So if you don't have Visual Studio Code installed, just head on to just type Visual Studio Code on your browser. You get code.visualstudiocode.com and just scroll down. Yeah, okay, you have a download for Windows here. So if you're on Windows, Mac, or Linux, or any other operating system, you should be able to get your um download by your version right here. If you are not using, if you already have another code editor installed, such as Notepad++, Sublime Text, and the likes, you can still work with that. Okay, you can still work with that. So it's not necessary that you work with Visual Studio Code, but I'm just using Visual Studio Code here. So to get started, I'm going to be picking my, I'm going to be picking it from this part here, which is um, where my classes is going to, or my topics are going to be coming from. Like I said, I won't be working with theoretical aspect, and I'll be using free resources to teach the HTML class. So once you have your Visual Studio Code installed, my advice is if you're a beginner, like a complete beginner, you don't know what you are or how to really work around it, just go to your desktop. Sorry, I need to show these things here. So right from your desktop, just right click and then select a new folder. Windows 11 is the worst operating system so far, but then it have much of it. So right click and then select new folder. You can name it anything you want. On my own part, I'll simply name it web dev bootcamp. So with this open, there are multiple ways I can actually take this into Visual Studio Code. I can drag it and drop it in Visual Studio Code, and then as you can see, I can do that. That works. I can also come to, I'm going to put this on full screen here. I can come over to File here, go to Open Folder, and then navigate to the desktop. Then select the, so here I have it. And then as you can see here, what I have here is Web Dev Bootcamp, and what I also have here is Web Dev Bootcamp, which basically says this is the directory I'm working from. So, oh, sorry, that was a code that came through. Anyway, so to get started, HTML files always end with .html. So you can come here, you can name your file anything What common conversion for the first page of every website is to name it index.html. You can decide to name it building.html, which still works. That's not really an issue. But every time you go to a website, let me just quickly show this. What I said, I wasn't going to talk much on the theoretical part and theoretical part. Let's say I go to a site like Wikipedia. Every time I go to a website like Wikipedia, wikipedia.org, this page right here is called the index page. And whenever you go to your website, wikipedia.org, what your browser looks for is the index.html file on that website. Okay, that's the first name. Now, other pages can then have different names, but the first page, that's the home page, is always named index.html because that's what the browser is looking for. Then you can then have several other pages like about.html, contacts.html, and the likes.html. So you can then have all of that, which it all depends on what kind of website you're building or you're working with. So I'm just going to remove this. I don't need this part, and I also don't need this one. And then I'm going to rename this back to index.html. Okay, so I'm just going to rename it to like HTML. Now, if you are downloading Visual Studio Code for the first time, there are two three primary things like extensions I think you should have, which is going to make your coding easier. Let me zoom this in. Might be small and for me this is actually super, but let's do it. Now on the right bar where you have this, you go to this one which is extensions, and then you search for live server. Now you should get several types, like you have this live server, five server, live server preview. The one you should, oh, you don't have to technically use it, but the one I use is this one by Retweet Day. Okay, this is the live server. Once if you don't have it, click on I think install, and then you should have it. After that, you will also search for prettier prettier code for matter. This particular one by prettier.io. It's basically it just makes your codes prettier in a way anyway. Well, how do I explain this? Okay, what I'm trying to explain is when you're coding, it's easy to actually lose track of where and what you've done. But by using Prettier, you're able to, it helps you format it neatly, right? So you're able to easily track what it is you're doing and what it is you're not doing. And then this, you can also have, okay, material icon theme. This is purely optional, by the way. You don't always have to use it. I just use it because it allows me to set my icon theme. So once you install it, set file icon theme to material icons, and then when you have that, when you create something like this, you see these little icons on the left side. It allows you to, it just gives you that. So that's basically what it's used for. Those icons on the right, py and you so these little icons on the right, that's uh, yeah, I don't need this right now. So that's basically what the material icon thing allows you to do. Okay. So now to get started, I'm simply going to close this side here. Then I'm going to split my screen into two views so we can work on it side by side. Can I do this? All right. So now on my web page, I can type anything by simply doing this. Save that, save that, and then click on go live on your if you don't have live server installed, you're not going to get this one. So you need to make sure live server is installed. So you click on go live, and then it should, oh, it's going to open on a different browser, which I'm simply going to use this one here. So now you see what I have here is same thing. type there. So hello world, you are there. And say you can also type in here welcome to build with Building and save that and you have this. Mm, that's strange. It should automatically reload. That's what, oh, live reload is not possible without a header body tag. Alright. So we'll get to that part anyway. For those of you that are completely new, we'll get to that part. But anyway, just save and then come here to reload the page and then you get that. But this is not how you're going to write HTML tags, or this is not how you're actually going to code in HTML. HTML is written in tags, and tags are of different types. You have so many different types of tags. Um, you start with this, you start with this, or you know what, let me just do this. So you press shift 1 on your computer, you get the exclamation mark, or depending on whatever system you're using, but just get the exclamation mark, or you type HTML and then just select HTML5, and then it gives you this. Now, this is a boilerplate code for every HTML file, which means every type of HTML file you get, every type of website you see starts with this. So let me just quickly explain this part here. Now, the first line here says doctype.html. It's simply a declaration that this file is an HTML type, is an HTML document. That's basically what that is saying. And then here you have, now let me even explain this because in my haste I actually forgot to mention this. I did mention that HTML is written in tags. This, you see these angle brackets, or what you call greater than and less than, these are the tags. You see that every most of these words here are actually enclosed in those angle brackets. Like this is enclosed in the angle bracket. This also, like almost everything is enclosed in the angle bracket. This isn't though, so don't get it confused. Then you have this HTML, this second line here, and then here you have HTML, which is the tag, and then you have this lang equals to en. As you can guess, simply means language equals English. Okay, and then you can even just say en US or UK, depending, you know. Now, this lang equals en UK is what is called an attribute of an HTML file. Okay. I mean, of an HTML tag, that's an attribute. This is tag, and this right here is the attribute. So an attribute is just like additional information or meta information about a tag, or just to extend functionality. It all depends on what type of attribute you're working on. And then here you have head, and then you have body. You also notice another thing, that there's a space here. I mean, it's not starting from here. If I save it, it goes back. And this also is not starting from here. Saving this, it returns back here. This is called nesting in HTML, and this is what is happening. I'm going to remove this first so I can explain it better. So here we have this HTML. This is the outermost tag of your HTML file, right? So here, now, because this is the opening tag, because most HTML files have opening and closing tags. I say most because not all HTML tags have opening and closing tags. So this is on the opening tag, and then this is the closing tag. You notice that the difference between the opening and closing tag is that this has a slash, this doesn't have a slash. I mean, you can leave it like this. I can remove the attribute and it still works. Okay, so removing the attribute doesn't stop it from working. It still works. So this is the opening tag, this is the closing tag, and you can know that by the slash. But this first line does not have a closing tag, it's just a self-closing tag. So that's why I said some have a closing tag, some don't. And then since this is the tag, then inside this HTML tag is where I'm going to be putting all my codes, right? So what I'm going to do now is to put the head tag here. Now, since the head tag is inside the HTML tag, it is nested one level inside, like this. Oh, what's this? So it's nested one level inside. like this. If I want to put something else inside the head tag, it also has to be nested one level inside. Like there's something like title. Title is going to be build with build room. Before I save this, I want you to look at this part here. What we have is 127. That's just the local host address I have here. But by adding this title tag and saving it, I should get this. Now you see we have build with build. So that's basically what the title tag does. If I want to now the head tag, we have the head tag and then we have the body tag, which let me just add this here. Body tag. Now for the head tag, all contents inside the head tag are not meant to be displayed on the browser, on the web page. But for any other visible content should go into the body. Let me say it again. Non-visible content should go to the head tag. Visible content should go to the body tag. Now, since I have I want you to look at this before I explain this further. Now, you notice the head and the body are on the same level. That's because they are not inside each other. Both of them are inside this HTML tag, which is the parent attribute in this case. And then head is now a child attribute. Body is also another child attribute of the HTML attribute. When you go one level deep, head now becomes a parent attribute. Title becomes a child attribute. So you can trace it up to say title as the child element, not attribute, sorry, child element. Head is parent element and HTML is grandparent element. You can trace it up like that. So that's why you have body and head on the same level. If I'm to put something inside the body, say something like h1 tag and say hello world, and then maybe here I can have a p tag that simply says this is the beginning. This is the beginning. So these you can see h1 and p tag, which I'm going to explain later, are also on the same level. So that I just want you to take note of that. So although you can actually have it like this, but Prettier is not going to allow me to save it like this because the moment I save, it automatically formats it for me. But you can have it like that and it still works. The browser still interprets it because what it's looking for are the tags. So it starts interpreting it from the tag. That's where it gets from. So anyway, that will be all for this video, which is welcome to HTML, and I'm going to stop it for there. So see you in the next one, guys.